The Handmaid's Tale is a 1985 dystopian novel by Canadian author Margaret Atwood, set in a near-future New England, in a totalitarian theocracy that has overthrown the United States government. The novel explores themes of women in subjugation and the various means by which they gain individualism and independence. The novel's title echoes the component parts of Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, which comprises a series of connected stories, The Merchant's Tale, The Parson's Tale, etc. The Handmaid's Tale won the 1985 Governor-General's Award and the first Arthur C. Clarke Award in 1987. It was also nominated for the 1986 Nebula Award, the 1986 Booker Prize, and the 1987 Prometheus Award. The book has been adapted into a film, 1990, an opera, 2000, a TV series, 2017, and other media. Plot summary. The Handmaid's Tale is set in the Republic of Gilead, a theocratic military dictatorship formed within the borders of what was formerly the United States of America, beginning with a staged attack that kills the president and most of Congress. A Christian fundamentalist movement calling itself the Sons of Jacob launches a revolution and suspends the United States Constitution under the pretext of restoring order. They are quickly able to take away women's rights, largely attributed to financial records being stored electronically and labeled by gender. The new regime, the Republic of Gilead, moves quickly to consolidate its power and reorganize society along a new militarized, hierarchical regime of Old Testament-inspired social and religious fanaticism among its newly created social classes. In this society, human rights are severely limited and women's rights are even more curtailed. For example, women are forbidden to read. The story is told in the first person by a woman called Offred, literally of Fred. The character is one of a class of women kept for reproductive purposes and known as handmaids by the ruling class in an era of declining births due to sterility from pollution and sexually transmitted diseases. Offred describes her life during her third assignment as a handmaid, in this case to Fred, referred to as the commander. Interspersed in flashbacks are portions of her life from before and during the beginning of the revolution, when she finds she has lost all autonomy to her husband, through her failed attempt to escape with her husband and daughter to Canada, to her indoctrination into life as a handmaid. Offred describes the structure of Gilead's society, including the several different classes of women and their circumscribed lives in the new theocracy. The commander is a high-ranking official in Gilead, although he is supposed to have contact with Offred only during the ceremony, a ritual of sexual intercourse intended to result in conception and at which his wife is present. He begins an illegal and ambiguous relationship with her. He offers her hidden or contraband products, such as old, 1970s, fashion magazines, cosmetics and clothes, takes her to a secret brothel run by the government, and furtively meets with her in his study, where he allows her to read, an activity otherwise prohibited for women. The commander's wife, Serena Joy, also has secret interactions with Offred, arranging for her secretly to have sex with Nick, the commander's driver, in an effort to get Offred pregnant. In exchange for Offred's cooperation, Serena Joy gives her news of her daughter, whom Offred has not seen since she and her family were captured trying to escape Gilead. After Offred's initial meeting with Nick, they begin to rendezvous more frequently. Offred discovers she enjoys sex with Nick, despite her indoctrination and her memories of her husband. She shares potentially dangerous information about her past with him. Through another handmaid, Offglen, Offred learns of the Mayday Resistance, an underground network working to overthrow Gilead. Shortly after Offglen's disappearance, later revealed as a suicide, the commander's wife finds evidence of the relationship between Offred and the commander. Offred contemplates suicide. As the novel concludes, she is being taken away by the secret police, the Eyes of God, known informally as the Eyes, under orders from Nick. Before she is put in the large black van, Nick tells her that the men are part of the Mayday Resistance and that Offred must trust him. Offred does not know if Nick is a member of the Mayday Resistance or a government agent posing as one, and she does not know if going with the men will result in her escape or her capture. She enters the van with her future uncertain. The novel concludes with a metafictional epilogue that explains that the events of the novel occurred shortly after the beginning of what is called the Gilead period. The epilogue is a partial transcript of the proceedings of the 12th Symposium on Gileadan Studies written in 2195. According to the symposium's keynote speaker Professor Poul Ruders, he and colleague, Professor Notley Wade, discovered Offred's story recorded onto cassette tapes. They transcribed the tapes, calling them collectively The Handmaid's Tale. Through the tone and actions of the professionals in this final section of the book, the world of academia is highlighted and critiqued, and Poul Ruders discusses his team's search for the characters named in the tale, and the impossibility of proving the tape's authenticity. Nevertheless, the epilogue implies that, following the collapse of the theocratic Republic of Gilead, a more equal society, though not the United States that previously existed, re-emerged with a restoration of full rights for women and freedom of religion. Characters others Offred Offred is the protagonist and narrator. She was labeled a wanton woman when Gilead was established because she had married a man who was divorced. All divorces were nullified by the new government, meaning her husband was now considered still married to his first wife, making Offred an adulteress. In trying to escape Gilead, she was separated from her husband and daughter. She is part of the first generation of Gilead's women, those who remember pre-Gilead times. Proven fertile, she is considered an important commodity and has been placed as a handmaid in the home of the commander Offred and his wife Serena Joy, to bear a child for them. Serena Joy is believed to be infertile. Offred is a slave name that describes her function. She is of Offred, i.e., she belongs to Offred, her commander, and is considered a concubine. In the novel, Offred says that she is not a concubine, but a tool, a two-legged womb. Offred is also a pun on the word offered, as in offered as a sacrifice. It is implied that her birth name is June. The women in training to be handmaids whisper names across their beds at night. The names are Alma, Janine, Dolores, Moira, June, and all are later accounted for except June. In addition, one of the aunts tells the handmaids in training to stop mooning and Juning. Minor suggests that June is a pseudonym, as Mayday is the name of the Gilead resistance. June could be an invention by the protagonist. The Nunavut conference covered in the epilogue takes place in June. Atwood wrote that it was not her original intention to imply that Offred's real name is June, but it fits, so readers are welcome to it if they wish. The commander The commander says that he is a sort of scientist and was previously involved in something similar to market research, pre-Gilead. Later, it is hypothesized, but not confirmed, that he might have been one of the architects of the Republic and its laws. Presumably, his first name is Offred, though that, too, may be a pseudonym. He engages in forbidden intellectual pursuits with Offred, such as playing Scrabble, and introduces her to a secret club that serves as a brothel for high-ranking officers. Offred learns that the commander carried on a similar relationship with his previous handmaid and that she killed herself when his wife found out. In the epilogue, the academics speculate that one of two figures, both instrumental in the establishment of Gilead, may have been Offred, based on his first name. It is strongly suggested that the commander was a man named Frederick R. Waterford who was killed in a purge shortly after Offred was taken away, charged with harboring an enemy agent. Serena Joy Serena Joy is a former televangelist and the commander's wife in the fundamentalist theocracy. The state took away her power and public recognition, and tries to hide her past as a television figure. Offred identifies her master's wife by recalling seeing her on TV when she was a little girl early on Saturday mornings while waiting for the cartoons to air. Believed to be sterile, although the suggestion is made that the commander is sterile. Gileadan laws attribute sterility only to women. She is forced to accept that he has use of a handmaid. She resents having to take part in the monthly fertility ritual. She strikes a deal with Offred to arrange for her to have sex with Nick in order to become pregnant. According to Professor Pae Hoto in the epilogue, Serena Joy or Pam are pseudonyms. The character's real name is implied to be Thelma. Offglen Offglen is a neighbor of Offred's and a fellow handmaid. She is partnered with Offred to do the daily shopping. Handmaids are never alone and are expected to police each other's behavior. Offglen is a member of the Mayday resistance. In contrast to Offred, she is daring. She knocks out a Mayday spy who is to be tortured and killed in order to save him the pain of a violent death. Offred is told that when Offglen vanishes, it is because she has committed suicide before the government can take her into custody due to her membership in the resistance, possibly to avoid giving away any information. A new handmaid, also called Offglen, takes Offglen's place, and is assigned as Offred's shopping partner. She threatens Offred against any thought of resistance. She breaks protocol by telling her what happened to the first Offglen. Nick Nick is the commander's chauffeur, who lives above the garage. By Serena Joy's arrangement, he and Offred start a sexual relationship to increase her chance of getting pregnant. If she were unable to bear the commander a child, she would be declared sterile and shipped to the ecological wastelands of the colonies. Offred begins to develop feelings for him. Nick is an ambiguous character, and Offred does not know if he is a party loyalist or part of the resistance, though he identifies himself as the latter. The epilogue suggests that he really was part of the resistance, and aided Offred in escaping the commander's house. Moira Moira has been a close friend of Offred's since college. A lesbian, she has resisted the homophobia of Gilead's society. Moira is taken to be a handmaid soon after Offred. She escapes by stealing an aunt's pass and clothes. Offred later encounters her working as a prostitute in a party-run brothel. She had been caught and chose the brothel over being sent to the colonies. Luke Luke was Offred's husband prior to the formation of Gilead. He had divorced his first wife to marry her. Under Gilead, all divorces were retroactively nullified, resulting in Offred being considered an adulteress and their daughter a bastard. Offred was forced to become a handmaid and her daughter was given to a loyalist family. Since their attempt to escape to Canada, Offred has heard nothing of Luke. Professor Paul Paul is the co-discoverer with Professor Notley Wade of Offred's tapes. He talks in his presentation about the problems of authentication in reference to the Handmaid's Tale. Setting The novel is set in an indeterminate future, speculated to be around the year 2005, with a fundamentalist theocracy ruling the territory of what had been the United States but is now the Republic of Gilead. Individuals are segregated by categories and dressed according to their social functions. The complex sumptuary laws, dress codes, play a key role in imposing social control within the new society and serve to distinguish people by sex, occupation, and caste. The action takes place in the Harvard Square neighborhood of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Atwood studied at Radcliffe College, located in this area. Politics In Gilead, the bodies of women are politicized and controlled. The North American population is falling as more men and women become infertile, though in Gilead, legally, it is only women who can be the cause of infertility. Gilead's treatment of women is based upon a narrow, fundamentalist interpretation of the Bible, meaning that women are the property of and subordinate to their husband, father, or head of household. They are not allowed to do anything that would grant them any power independent of this system. They are not allowed to vote, hold a job, read, possess money, or own anything, among many other restrictions. A particular quote from The Handmaid's Tale sums this up: "The Republic of Gilead," said Aunt Lydia, "knows no bounds. Gilead is within you." HT 5.2. This describes that there is no way around the societal bounds of women in this new state of government. Handmaids, being not allowed to wed, are given 2-year assignments with a commander, and lose their own name. They are called of their commander's first name, such as the novel's heroine, known only as Offred. When a handmaid is reassigned, her name changes with her. Their original identities before the revolution are suppressed, although while being re-educated as handmaids, they surreptitiously share their names with each other. In this book, the government appears to be strong, though no one in Gilead seems to be a true believer in its revolution. Beauchamp, the commanders, portrayed via Commander Fred, do not agree with their own doctrines. The commander takes Offred at one point to a club in order to have sex with her in an informal setting apart from the ceremony. The wives, portrayed via Serena Joy, former television evangelist, disobey the rules set forth by their commander husbands. Serena smokes black market cigarettes and expresses the forbidden idea that men may be infertile, and schemes to get Offred impregnated by her chauffeur. Caste and class African Americans, the main non-white ethnic group in this society, are called the children of Ham. A state TV broadcast mentions they have been relocated en masse to national homelands in the Midwest, which are suggestive of the apartheid-era homelands set up by South Africa. Roman Catholics are only briefly mentioned. Nuns who refuse conversion are considered unwomen and banished to the colonies due to their reluctance to marry and refusal, inability to bear children. Priests unwilling to convert are executed and hung from the wall. Jews are called sons of Jacob, also the name of the fundamentalist group that rules the Republic of Gilead. Offred observes that Jews refusing to convert are allowed to emigrate to Israel, and most choose to leave. However, in the epilogue, Professor Paul reveals that many of the emigrating Jews ended up being dumped into the sea while on the ships ostensibly tasked with transporting them to Israel, due to privatization of the repatriation program and capitalists' effort to maximize profits. Offred mentions that many Jews who chose to stay were caught secretly practicing Judaism and executed. Gender and occupation The sexes are strictly divided. Gilead's society values reproduction by white women most highly. Women are categorized hierarchically according to class status and reproductive capacity, as well as metonymically color-coded according to their function and their labor. Kaufman 232. The commander expresses the prevailing opinion that women are considered intellectually and emotionally inferior to men. Women are segregated by clothing, as are men. With rare exception, men wear military or paramilitary uniforms, which takes away their individualism as it does the women, but also gives them a sense of bravado and empowerment. All classes of men and women are defined by the colors they wear, as in all Aldous Huxley's dystopian Brave New World, drawing on color symbolism and psychology. All lower-status individuals are regulated by this dress code. All non-persons are banished to the colonies, usually forced labor camps in which they clean up radioactive waste, becoming exposed and dying painful deaths as a result. Sterile, unmarried women are considered to be non-persons. Both men and women sent there wear gray dresses. Women. 6 main categories of legitimate women make up mainstream society. 2 chief categories of illegitimate women live outside of mainstream society. Legitimate women. Wives. They are at the top social level permitted to women. They are married to the higher-ranking functionaries. Wives always wear blue dresses, suggesting traditional depictions of the Virgin Mary in historic Christian art. When a commander dies, his wife becomes a widow and must dress in black. Daughters. The natural or adopted children of the ruling class. They wear white until marriage, which is now pre-arranged. The narrator's daughter has been adopted by an infertile wife and commander. Handmaids. Fertile women whose social function is to bear children for the wives. They dress in a red habit that completely conceals their shape, plus red shoes and red gloves. They wear white wings around their heads to prevent their seeing or being seen except when standing directly in front of a person. Handmaids are produced by re-educating fertile women who have broken the gender and social laws. Needing fertile handmaids, Gilead gradually increased the number of gender crimes. The Republic of Gilead justifies use of the handmaids for procreation based on biblical stories. Jacob took his 2 wives' handmaids, Bilhah and Zilpah, to bed to bear him children, when the wives could not. Gen. 30-1-3, and Abraham took his wife's handmaid, Hagar. Gen. 16-1-6. Handmaids are generally assigned to commanders, allowed to live in their houses, but remanded back to aunts' facilities in the event a commander is deployed in order to be guarded, and returned to the commander's house upon his return from deployment. Handmaids who successfully bear children to term assist in raising them for a short time, and are then sent away to a new assignment, never to see the child they bore again. Their success as a handmaid, however, means they will never be declared an unwoman and sent to the colonies, even if they never have another baby. Aunts. They train and monitor the handmaids. They promote the role of handmaid as an honorable and legitimate one, and a method by which women who have committed crimes can redeem themselves. They directly control and police women. Serving as an aunt is the only role for such unmarried, infertile, and often older women to have any autonomy. It allows them to avoid going to the colonies. Aunts dress in brown. They are the only class of women permitted to read. The aunts are allowed to read and write. Vintage books. p. 139. However, on p. 100 of the Vintage Books edition, they played it, the Beatitudes, from a disc. The voice was a man's. In the Anchor Books edition, they played it, the Beatitudes, from a tape, so not even an aunt would be guilty of the sin of reading. The voice was a man's. p. 89. Marthas. They are older and fertile women who have domestic skills and are compliant, making them suitable as servants. They dress in green smocks. The title of Martha is based on a story in Luke chapter 10 verses 38-42, where Jesus visits Mary, sister of Lazarus and Martha. Mary listens to Jesus while Martha works at all the preparations that had to be made. Econowives. Women who have married relatively low-ranking men, not part of the elite. They are expected to perform all the female functions, domestic duties, companionship, and childbearing. Their dress is multicolored red, blue, and green to reflect these multiple roles. The division of labor among the women generates some resentment. Marthas, wives and econowives perceive handmaids as promiscuous and are taught to scorn them. Offred mourns that the women of the various groups have lost their ability to empathize with each other. They are divided in their oppression. Illegitimate women, unwomen, sterile women, the unmarried, some widows, feminists, lesbians, nuns, and politically dissident women, all women who are incapable of social integration within the Republic's strict gender divisions. Gilead exiles unwomen to the colonies, areas both of agricultural production and of deadly pollution. Joining them are those handmaids who fail to bear a child after 3 two-year assignments. Jezebels, women forced to become prostitutes and entertainers. They are available only to the commanders and to their guests. Offred portrays Jezebels as attractive and educated. They may be unsuitable as handmaids due to temperament. They have been sterilized, a surgery that is forbidden to other women. They operate in unofficial but state-sanctioned brothels, unknown to most women. Jezebels, whose title also comes from the Bible, note Queen Jezebel in the books of Kings, dress in the remnants of sexualized costumes from the time before, such as cheerleaders' costumes, school uniforms, and Playboy bunny costumes. Jezebels can wear makeup, drink alcohol, and socialize with men, but are tightly controlled by the aunts. When they pass their sexual prime or their looks fade, they are discarded, without any precision as to whether they are killed or sent to the colonies in the novel. Men are classified into four main categories. Commanders of the faithful, the ruling class. Because of their status, they are entitled to establish a patriarchal household with a wife, a handmaid if necessary, Marthas, female servants, and guardians. They have a duty to procreate, but many may be infertile, as a possible result of exposure to a biological agent in pre-Gilead times. They wear black to signify superiority. They are allowed cars, eyes, the secret police attempting to discover those violating the rules of Gilead, angels, soldiers who fight in the wars in order to expand and protect the country's borders. Angels may be permitted to marry, guardians of the faith, soldiers used for routine policing and other menial functions. They are unsuitable for other work in the Republic, being stupid or older or disabled or very young, apart from the ones that are eyes incognito. Chapter 4. Young guardians may be promoted to angels when they come of age. They wear green uniforms. Men who engage in homosexuality or related acts are declared gender traitors. They are either hanged or sent to the colonies to die a slow death. Babies. In this society, birth defects have become increasingly common. There are two main categories of human children: unbabies, also known as shredders, babies born physically deformed or with some other birth defect. They do not last, but Offred does not know or want to know what happens to them. Pregnant handmaids fear giving birth to a damaged child, or unbaby. Gilead forbids abortion and has done away with other testing to determine prenatal health of a fetus. Keepers. Babies that are born alive with no defects. The ceremony. The ceremony is a non-marital sexual act sanctioned for reproduction. The ritual requires the handmaid to lie on her back between the legs of the wife during the sex act as if they were one person. The wife has to invite the handmaid to share her power this way. Many wives consider this both humiliating and offensive. Offred describes the ceremony. My red skirt is hitched up to my waist, though no higher. Below it the commander is fucking. What he is fucking is the lower part of my body. I do not say making love, because this is not what he's doing. Copulating too would be inaccurate, because it would imply two people and only one is involved. Nor does rape cover it. Nothing is going on here that I haven't signed up for. Language. In the novel's fictional fundamentalist society, sterile is an outlawed word. In this society, there is no such thing as a sterile man anymore. In this culture, women are either fruitful or barren, the latter of which is declared to be an unwoman and is sent to the colonies with the rest of the unwomen to do life-threatening work until their death, which is, on average, 3 years. Atwood emphasizes how changes in context affect behaviors and attitudes by repeating the phrase "context is all" throughout the novel, establishing this precept as a motif. Playing the game of Scrabble with her commander illustrates the key significance of changes in context. Once the game of old men and women, the game became forbidden for women to play and therefore desirable. Through living in a morally rigid society, Offred has come to perceive the world differently from earlier. Offred expresses amazement at how it has taken so little time to change our minds about things. Wearing revealing clothes and makeup had been part of her former life, but when she sees Japanese tourists dressed that way, she now feels the women are inappropriately dressed. Offred can read but not translate the phrase "nolite te bastardes carborandorum" carved into the closet wall of her small bedroom. This mock Latin aphorism signifies "don't let the bastards grind you down." The significance of this phrase is intensified by the challenges the book has faced, creating a mise en abîme as both the protagonist and the reader decipher subversive texts. Genre classification. In interviews and essays, Atwood has discussed generic classification of The Handmaid's Tale as science fiction or speculative fiction, observing, "I like to make a distinction between science fiction proper and speculative fiction, but the terms are fluid." Hugo-winning science fiction critic David Langford observed in a column, "The Handmaid's Tale won the very first Arthur C. Clarke Award in 1987. She's been trying to live this down ever since," he says. Atwood prefers to say that she writes speculative fiction, a term coined by SF author Robert A. Heinlein. As she told The Guardian, "Science fiction has monsters and spaceships. Speculative fiction could really happen." She used a subtly different phrasing for New Scientist. Oryx and Crake is not science fiction. It is fact within fiction. Science fiction is when you have rockets and chemicals. So it was very cruel of New Scientist to describe this interview in the contents list as, "Margaret Atwood explains why science is crucial to her science fiction." Play it again, Ms. Atwood, this time for the Book of the Month Club. Oryx and Crake is a speculative fiction, not a science fiction proper. It contains no intergalactic space travel, no teleportation, no Martians. On BBC One Breakfast News, the distinguished author explained that science fiction, as opposed to what she writes, is characterized by talking squids in outer space. In distinguishing between these genre labels, science fiction and speculative fiction, Atwood acknowledges that others may use the terms interchangeably, but she notes her interest in this type of work to explore themes in ways that realistic fiction cannot do. Historical context Fitting with her claims that The Handmaid's Tale is a work of speculative fiction, not science fiction, Atwood's novel offers a satirical view of various social, political, and religious trends of 1980s United States. Further, Atwood questions what would happen if these trends, and especially casually held attitudes about women, were taken to their logical end. So all of those things are real, and therefore the amount of pure invention is close to nil. Atwood was also known to carry around newspaper clippings to her various interviews to support her fiction's basis in reality. Atwood has explained that The Handmaid's Tale is a response to those who claim the oppressive, totalitarian, and religious governments that have taken hold in other countries throughout the years can't happen here, but in this work, she has tried to show how such a takeover might play out. Atwood's inspiration for the Republic of Gilead came from her time studying early American Puritans while at Harvard, which she attended on a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship. Atwood also had a personal connection to the Puritans, and she dedicates the novel to her own ancestor Mary Webster, who was accused of witchcraft in Puritan New England but survived her hanging. Due to the religious nature of Gileadan society, Atwood clearly drew from the Bible for both the title of this novel as well as some of the specific traits and practices of this theocracy. In fact, Atwood has often argued that in order for a coup such as the one depicted in The Handmaid's Tale to occur, religion would have to be evoked. If you wanted to seize power in the US, abolish liberal democracy and set up a dictatorship, how would you go about it? What would be your cover story? It would not resemble any form of communism or socialism. Those would be too unpopular. Nations never build apparently radical forms of government on foundations that aren't there already. Thus China replaced a state bureaucracy with a similar state bureaucracy under a different name. The USSR replaced the dreaded imperial secret police with an even more dreaded secret police, and so forth. Like any theocracy, this one would select a few passages from the Bible to justify its actions, and it would lean heavily towards the Old Testament, not towards the New. In her work, Just a Backlash, Margaret Atwood, Feminism, and The Handmaid's Tale, Shirley Newman writes, women made up an increasing percentage of those in the lowest paid occupations, and they made no gains or lost ground in the better paid trades and professions. The number of elected and politically appointed women declined. One-third of all federal budget cuts under Reagan's presidency came from programs that served mainly women. Even though these programs represented only 10% of the federal budget, the average amount a divorced man paid in child support fell 25%. The debate about freedom of choice for women flipped over into court rulings about the rights and freedom of the fetus. The Equal Rights Amendment died. Women such as Phyllis Schlafly and Tammy Faye Messner built their careers preaching against feminism, telling women to return home, to let their husbands provide, and to use their femininity and feminine wiles as the core of their success and fulfillment as women. Atwood also draws connections between the ways in which Gilead's leaders maintain their power and other examples of actual totalitarian governments. In her interviews, Atwood offers up Iran and Afghanistan as examples of religious theocracies forcing women out of the public sphere and into their homes. As in Gilead, the state-sanctioned murder of dissidents was inspired by the Philippines, and the last general secretary of the Romanian Communist Party Nicolae Ceausescu's obsession with increasing the birth rate led to the strict policing of pregnant women and the outlawing of birth control and abortion. However, Atwood clearly explains that many of these deplorable acts were not just present in other cultures and countries, but within Western society, and within the Christian tradition itself. The Republic of Gilead struggles with infertility, making Offred's services as a handmaid vital to producing children and thus reproducing the society. Handmaids themselves are untouchable, but their ability to signify status is equated to that of slaves or servants throughout history. Atwood's strong stance on environmental issues and their negative consequences for our society has presented itself in other works such as her Mad Adam trilogy, and refers back to her growing up with biologists and her own scientific curiosity. Critical reception The Handmaid's Tale was well received by critics, helping to cement Atwood's status as a prominent writer of the 20th century. Not only was the book deemed well written and compelling, but Atwood's work was notable for sparking intense debates both in and out of academia. Atwood maintains that the Republic of Gilead is only an extrapolation of trends already seen in the United States at the time of her writing, a view supported by other scholars studying The Handmaid's Tale. Indeed, many have placed The Handmaid's Tale in the same category of dystopian fiction as 1984 and Brave New World, with the added feature of confronting patriarchy, a categorization that Atwood has accepted and reiterated in many articles and interviews. Even today, many reviewers hold that Atwood's novel remains as foreboding and powerful as ever, largely because of its basis in historical fact. Yet when her book was first published in 1985, not all reviewers were convinced of the cautionary tale Atwood presented. For example, Mary McCarthy's New York Times review argued that The Handmaid's Tale lacked the surprised recognition necessary for readers to see our present selves in a distorting mirror of what we may be turning into if current trends are allowed to continue. Feminist reading Much of the discussion about The Handmaid's Tale has centered on its categorization as feminist literature. Atwood does not see the Republic of Gilead as a purely feminist dystopia, as not all men have greater rights than women. Some scholars have offered such a feminist interpretation, however, connecting Atwood's use of religious fundamentalism in the pages of The Handmaid's Tale to a condemnation of their presence in current American society. Awards 1985 Governor General's Award for English Language Fiction, winner. 1986 Booker Prize, nominated. 1986 Nebula Award, nominated. 1987 Arthur C. Clarke Award, winner. 1987 Prometheus Award, nominated. Academic reception Atwood's novels, and especially her works of speculative fiction The Handmaid's Tale and Oryx and Crake, are frequently offered as examples for the final, open-ended question on the North American Advanced Placement English Literature and Composition exam each year. As such, her books are often assigned in high school classrooms to students taking this advanced placement course, despite the mature themes the work presents. However, many people have expressed discontent at The Handmaid's Tale's presence in the classroom, as it has been frequently challenged or banned over the last 30 years. Some of these challenges have come from parents concerned about the explicit sexuality and other adult themes represented in the book. The American Library Association, ALA, lists The Handmaid's Tale as number 37 on the 100 most frequently challenged books of 1990 to 2000. Atwood participated in discussing The Handmaid's Tale as the subject of an ALA discussion series titled One Book, One Conference. Some complaints have included 1990, challenged at Rancho Cotete High School, Rohnert Park, California is too explicit for students. 1992, challenged in Waterloo, Iowa, schools, reportedly because of profanity, lurid passages about sex, and statements defamatory to minorities, God, women, and the disabled. 1993, removed because of profanity and sex from the Chicopee, Massachusetts, high school English class reading list. 1998, challenged for use in Richland, Washington, high school English classes, along with 6 other titles determined to be poor quality literature and that stress suicide, illicit sex, violence, and hopelessness. 1999, challenged because of graphic sex, but retained on the advanced placement English list, at George D. Chamberlain High School in Tampa, Florida. 2000, downgraded from required to optional on the summer reading list for 11th graders in the Upper Moreland School District near Philadelphia due to age-inappropriate subject matter. 2001, challenged, but retained, in the Dripping Springs, Texas, senior advanced placement English course as an optional reading assignment. Some parents were offended by the book's descriptions of sexual encounters. 2006, initially banned by Superintendent Ed Lyman from an advanced placement English curriculum in the Judson Independent School District in Texas, after a parent complained. Lyman had overruled the recommendation of a committee of teachers, students, and parents. The committee appealed the decision to the school board, which overturned his ban. Rushoe quotes the response of Russell Morden Brown, a retired University of Toronto English professor, who acknowledged that The Handmaid's Tale wasn't likely written for 17-year-olds, but neither are a lot of things we teach in high school, like Shakespeare, and they are all the better for reading it. They are on the edge of adulthood already, and there's no point in coddling them, he said, adding, they aren't coddled in terms of mass media today anyway. He said the book has been accused of being anti-Christian and, more recently, anti-Islamic because the women are veiled and polygamy is allowed. But that misses the point, said Brown. It's really anti-fundamentalism. In her earlier account, the 14th of January 2009, Rushoe reported that a Toronto District School Board committee was reviewing the novel. In November 2012, 2 parents in Guilford County, North Carolina protested against inclusion of the book on a required reading list at a local high school. The parents presented the school board with a petition signed by 2,300 people, prompting a review of the book by the school's Media Advisory Committee. According to local news reports, one of the parents said she felt Christian students are bullied in society, in that they're made to feel uncomfortable about their beliefs by non-believers. She said including books like The Handmaid's Tale contributes to that discomfort, because of its negative view on religion and its anti-biblical attitudes toward sex. Other use in academia In institutions of higher education, Professors have found The Handmaid's Tale to be useful, largely because of its historical and religious basis and Atwood's captivating delivery. In other media film. The 1990 film The Handmaid's Tale was based on a screenplay by Harold Pinter and directed by Volker Schlondorf. It stars Natasha Richardson as Offred, Faye Dunaway as Serena Joy, and Robert Duvall as the commander, Fred. Television. Hulu has produced a 10-episode series of the novel starring Elizabeth Moss as Offred. The first 3 episodes were released on April 26, 2017, with subsequent episodes to follow on a weekly basis. Margaret Atwood served as consulting producer. The show has been renewed for a second season, coming out in early 2018. Radio. A dramatic adaptation of the novel for radio was produced for BBC Radio 4 by John Dryden in 2000. A Canadian dramatic adaptation for radio was written by playwright Michael O'Brien and produced on CBC Radio in 2002. Audio. An audiobook of the unabridged text, read by Claire Danes, ISBN 978149151519110, won the 2013 Audie Award for Fiction. In 2014, Canadian band Lakes of Canada released their album Transgressions, which is intended to be a concept album inspired by The Handmaid's Tale. In 2017, Secrets, Crimes and Audio Tape adapted the novel in the form of a multi-part podcast. Stage. The very first authorized stage adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale was written and directed by Bruce G. Shapiro and performed at Tufts Arena Theatre, Tufts University, in 1989. The late actress Molly Glynn played Offred. The production was very well received and highly regarded. An operatic adaptation, The Handmaid's Tale, by Poul Ruders, premiered in Copenhagen on 6 March 2000, and was performed by the English National Opera, in London, in 2003. It was the opening production of the 2004-2005 season of the Canadian Opera Company, a stage adaptation of the novel, by Brendan Burns, for the Haymarket Theatre, Basingstoke, England, toured the UK in 2002. A ballet adaptation choreographed by Leela York and produced by the Royal Winnipeg Ballet premiered on 16 October 2013. Amanda Green appeared as Offred and Alexander Gamayunov as the commander, a one-woman stage show, adapted from the novel, by Joseph Stalin. Work premiered in the U.S. in January 2015. See also. Canadian literature, feminist science fiction, pregnancy and science fiction, Persepolis, comics, notes, references, works cited, the 17th of June 2005, Aliens Have Taken the Place of Angels, The Guardian, the 14th of January 2009, Complaint spurs school board to review novel by Atwood, The Toronto Star. Alexander, Lynn, the 22nd of May 2009, The Handmaid's Tale Working Bibliography, Department of English, University of Tennessee at Martin. Hyperlinked to online resources for Alexander, Dr. Lynn, Spring 1999, Women Writers, Magic, Mysticism, and Mayhem, course, includes entry for Book Chap by Kaufman, an interview with Margaret Atwood on her novel, The Handmaid's Tale, N.D. in Nashville Public Library. Armorbuster, J. 1990, Memory and Politics, A Reflection on The Handmaid's Tale, Social Justice 17, 3, 146-52. Atwood, Margaret, 1985, The Handmaid's Tale, Toronto, McClelland and Stewart, ISBN 0-7710-0813-9, 1986, The Handmaid's Tale, New York, Anchor Books, 1998, The Handmaid's Tale, New York, Anchor Books, DIV, of Random House, ISBN 978-0-385-49081-8. Parenthetical page references are to the 1998 ed., digitized 2 June 2008 by Google Books, 311 pp. 2005, Le Servante Écarlate The Handmaid's Tale, in French, Rue Acute, Sylvian Trancel, Paris, J.Lu, ISBN 978-2-290-34710-2. Atwood, M. 2004. The Handmaid's Tale in Oryx and Crake in Context. PMLA, 119, 3, 513-517. Atwood, M. The 20th of January 2012. Haunted by the Handmaid's Tale. The Guardian. Bergman, H. F. 1989. Teaching Them to Read, A Fishing Expedition in the Handmaid's Tale. College English, 51, 8, 847-854. Burek, C. 1988-89. Bringing Women's Studies to Political Science, The Handmaid in the Classroom. NWSA Journal 1, 2, 274-83. Callaway, A. 2008. Women Disunited, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale as a Critique of Feminism. San Jose State University. Kerwood, Steve. The 13th of June 2014. Margaret Atwood on Fiction, the Future, and Environmental Crisis. Living on Earth. N. P. Evans, M. 1994. Versions of History, The Handmaid's Tale and Its Dedicatees. In C. Nicholson, ed. Margaret Atwood, Writing and Subjectivity, pp. 177-188. London, United Kingdom. Palgrave Macmillan UK. Green, Gale, 1986. Choice of Evils. The Women's Review of Books 3, 10, 14, 15. Gruss, S. 2004. People Confuse Personal Relations with Legal Structures. An Interview with Margaret Atwood in Gender Forum. Retrieved the 28th of March 2016. Hines, M. E. 2006. Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, Fundamentalist Religiosity and the Oppression of Women. N. P. Angelo State University. Kaufman, Linda, 1989, 6. Special Delivery, 21st Century Epistolarity in The Handmaid's Tale, in Goldsmith, Elizabeth, Writing the Female Voice, Essays on Epistolary Literature, Boston, Northeastern University Press, pp. 221-44. Cited in Alexander, Langford, David, August 2003, Bits and Pieces, SFX, UK, Ansible, 107. Larson, J. L. 1989. Margaret Atwood and the Future of Prophecy, Religion and Literature 21, 1, 27-61. Laz, C. January 1996. Science Fiction and Introductory Sociology, The Handmaid, in the Classroom, Teaching Sociology, 24, 1, 54-63. Lewis, Lapham H. September 2004. Tentacles of Rage, The Republican Propaganda Mill, A Brief History. Harper's Magazine. Mercer, N. 2013. Subversive Feminist Thrusts, Feminist Dystopian Writing and Religious Fundamentalism in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, Louise Marley's The Terrorists of Iristan, Marge Piercy's He, She and I, Madison, Y, University of Wisconsin, Minor, Madon, 1991, Trust Me, Reading the Romance Plot in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, 20th Century Literature 37-148-68, doi, 10.2307, 441844. Morris, M. 1990. Margaret Atwood, The Art of Fiction No. 121. The Paris Review. Newman, S. C. 2006. Just a Backlash, Margaret Atwood, Feminism, and The Handmaid's Tale. University of Toronto Quarterly, 75, 3, 857-868. Oates, J. C. The 2nd of November 2006. Margaret Atwood's Tale. The New York Review of Books. Perry, D. The 30th of December 2014. Margaret Atwood and the Four Unwise Republicans, 12 Surprises from the Legendary Writers Reddit Amma, The Oregonian, Rothstein, Mervyn, the 17th of February 1986. No Bomb in Gilead for Margaret Atwood, The New York Times. Rushoe, Kristen, January 16, 2009. Atwood novel Too Brutal, Sexist for School, Parent, The Toronto Star. Archived from the original on April 21, 2016. Stein, K. F. 1996. Margaret Atwood's Modest Proposal, The Handmaid's Tale. Canadian Literature, 148, 57-72. The 100 Most Frequently Challenged Books of 1990 to 2000. American Library Association, 2009. Further reading Adami, Valentina, 2011. Bioethics Through Literature, Margaret Atwood's Cautionary Tales. Trier, W.V.T. Atwood, Margaret, 2001. Bloom, Harold, ed. The Handmaid's Tale. Philadelphia, Chelsea House. Cooper, Pamela, 1997. A Body Story with a Vengeance, Anatomy and Struggle in the Bell Jar and The Handmaid's Tale. Women's Studies, 26, 1, 89-123, doi, 10.1080-00497878, 1997.9979152, Dopp, Jamie, 1994. Subject Position as Victim Position in The Handmaid's Tale. Studies in Canadian Literature, 19, 1, 43-57. Gardner, Laurel J. 1994. Pornography as a Matter of Power in The Handmaid's Tale. Notes on Contemporary Literature. 24, 5, 5-7. Garrett's Pets, W.F. 1988. Reading, Writing and the Postmodern Condition, Interpreting Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Open Letter, 7th, I. Geddes, Dan, January 2001. Negative Utopia is Polemic, The Handmaid's Tale. The Satirist. Hammer, Stephanie Barbey, 1990. The World as It Will Be. Female Satire and the Technology of Power in The Handmaid's Tale. Modern Language Studies. Studies, XX, 2, 39-49, doi, 10.2307, 3,194,826, Malik, Amin, 1987, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and the Dystopian Tradition, Canadian Literature, 112-9-16, McCarthy, Mary, the 9th of February 1986, no headline, The Handmaid's Tale, Boston, Houghton Mifflin, The New York Times, Review, retrieved the 11th of April 2016, Moore, Dunya M., 2005, Worlds Apart, Dualism and Transgression in Contemporary Female Dystopias, Jefferson, N.C., McFarland 2005 long chapter on The Handmaid's Tale as Utopia and Dystopia, Mergids, Linda, 1999, Law, Medicine, and the Sex Slave in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, in Mergids, Kostas, Mergids, Linda, Undisciplining Literature, Literature, Law, and Culture, New York, Peter Lang, pp. 219-45, Stanners, Barbara, Stanners, Michael, Atwood, Margaret, 2004, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, Top Notes Literature Guides, Seven Hills, NSW, Australia, 5 Senses Education, External links Atwood, Margaret, April 2003, The Handmaid's Tale, audio file format, World Book Club, BBC World Service, The Handmaid's Tale Ballet at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet.